Hi, everybody. Welcome to Thrive Live, our first live broadcast. Hi, Jason and Ray, and we have our guest, Brad Warga, today. Jason, why don't you give Brad a little intro?
Oh my gosh. First of all, this is just super exciting. I feel like a kid at Christmas Day. This is our first LinkedIn live broadcast with Thrive Live. We've been doing the show for over a year and via other social media mechanisms, and we're really super excited to be here today. So this is just great. So we'd just like to thank LinkedIn for allowing us to be on and broadcasting. So they've really been a great partner for us, and we really appreciate everything LinkedIn's done for us. So thank you so much. So I'm super excited to announce that we have Brad Warga, partner Heidrick and Struggles, here with us. As I was saying back stage before we got on, Brad's really basically like a rock star in CHRO and HR search, and he's laughing, but he's very modest. If you are looking to go to search and you have a premier HR job, really anywhere in the country, people call Brad, as Brad places the best talent in the top companies. And Brad is located in San Francisco. He's the partner of the global technology and CHRO practice at Heidrick, and we're just super lucky to have him. He was also the VP of talent acquisition at Salesforce, so he's got an amazingly impressive background. So with that introduction, I'll say hi, Brad, and welcome. And we just wanted to talk about what's going on in the world of search.
Yeah, thank you, Jason, and thanks, Ray and Beth. It's awesome to be here. It's my first LinkedIn Live, so excited to try this out. It's been a great start to the year. So happy to jump in.
So Brad, you were mentioning when we talked briefly last week that this has been the best year that your search, the part of your search, the HR part, you've ever seen. Is that correct? And so maybe you could talk a little bit about how the year started off and how busy Heidrick is in the HR search area.
Yeah, and Jason, we're seeing record-breaking demand in the first quarter. Last year, despite COVID and social justice, it was incredibly busy, and we can dive into that. But it's literally record-breaking demand in the first 4 months of the year, and I think there's a combination of factors. Last year, those HR officers who are thinking about retirement typically sped up their plans and moved to Montana. I mean, we saw a lot of people drop out. And those individuals are sitting on boards and moving into advisory roles, but it did create a lot of movement. I think that the second factor, the IPO pipeline, has just been incredibly strong. I mean, we've seen valuations that are skyrocketing. And most of those founders call us when they want a strategic HR leader to guide them through an IPO. And we can talk more about the different sort of inflection points in companies' growth, where they typically bring in a new leader. And that really applies to total rewards and talent acquisition as well. And I think the third factor, and probably the biggest factor, is that COVID and social justice issues just created a much broader mandate for HR leaders, and there was no playbook. And so the good news for the function is that it's more strategic than ever before. I often tell candidates, great HR leaders have the second loneliest job in the company next to the CEO, because they have that full enterprise view and they deal with so many different issues. And I think the crisis of last year has highlighted those leaders who can be first principled in their thinking. They can be agile. They can solve these new challenges with a combination of critical thinking, curiosity, creativity. And we've seen that the academy playbooks of the past are just no longer working. And so HR leaders who can't be agile are being asked to step down, or there's upgrading that's happening across industries. And just in terms of what I spend time doing, I work actually across industries and spend a lot of time with hyper growth tech companies and then large companies in digital transformation. And so that's been exciting to get to see across the U.S., sort of what's happening in the function.
So when companies had a HR leader that wasn't basically doing what they needed to do, what were some of the skills that they were lacking? I know you touched on a couple of them, but what were the skills that they lacked to be able to pull their organizations through the pandemic and other issues? What didn't they have?
Yeah, I think back to the comment on agility. So there's been a number of things that we see happening in the function. I mean, one is this focus on digital and automation. So how do you go in and create more of a shared service function to free up the HR business partners and the team to spend less time on repetitious tasks? I think, and HR needs to be omni-channel because that's how our employees are interacting. So the digital piece is important in having those capabilities with technology and providing kind of 24/7 self-service. So that's one thing from an operations perspective. I also think there's a requirement now that HR is very data-driven. So there's always been a requirement to have strong business acumen, but we're seeing people very early on in the company's growth trajectory hire data scientists or data analysts who can really dive in and produce capacity models for hiring, workforce plans, determine return on investment on key programs, and trying to move to more predictive analytics to support decisions. I think that a lot of founders and CEOs want a culture carrier, someone who can take the mission of the company, the purpose of the company, and turn that into an employee value proposition and bring it to life across the entire journey that an employee has, and enhance the brand so that they can do a better job attracting talent. And then I think more than any of that, they want an inclusion champion and a global citizen who, is not just playing defense when it comes to diversity and inclusion, but who's playing offense and really rethinking the employee experience.
That's a great point.
Yeah, the offense piece is really good because I think we've talked to some people out in the world and their attitude was they would rather play defense, and our attitude was, well, look, I think you really have to put together a very inclusive plan that's going to do some things that are really going to make a difference to your shareholders and your board. So I think that's real, and your employees obviously, but I think that's a really good comment. Ray, you were going to ask a question?
Yeah, and maybe Brad, you can talk a little bit about, I mean, we've all been, working from home for the last 12 to 15 months. How is that dynamic impacting, the kinds of people that you're looking for in, on the HR side, and are organizations becoming more open to, hybrid schedules or remote work schedules?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Ray. I think I'm getting my second shot tonight, so so pretty excited to actually spend time going back to the office. I think we're seeing a lot of our young people that are sharing apartments with 3 other people competing for bandwidth. The office is starting to look pretty good, and for me, having 3 teenagers at home doing the same thing, I like to get out of the house once in a while. It's going to be interesting to see if travel returns in the way that it was before. I used to get on a plane and fly to New York for a 1-hour meeting, which seems pretty ridiculous at this point. So I think there's positive changes coming. With our clients, it's been interesting. Many in the tech world especially have gone remote first. And that's a recruiter's dream, right? To hire the best person wherever they are. And so the challenge, though, is they're often remote first, except they want the HR leader next to them.
Right.
And so I think we're seeing massive supply and demand issues right now, certainly because of all the movement we just talked about. But if you factor in the focus on diversity, and 80% of our placements last year were either gender or diverse, and people of color, and I think so that focus is paramount for clients. But also, when you look at geography, many people have left the cities. I mean, people left San Francisco and moved to Phoenix and Utah and Dallas and lower cost locations, and the same thing happened in New York. and it's sort of up in the air whether people are going to come back now that they have a different lifestyle. And so it is a challenge right now to find candidates to fill the demand.
Other than working remotely, what are some other trends that you're seeing in the industry as far as what candidates are interested in, what they're looking for with companies that they want to place with?
Yeah, it's interesting. I tell all of our clients when we start a search, if the HR, if the CHRO or chief people officer role doesn't report to the CEO, then they're going to lose half the market.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So,
very true.
we're seeing, I think the HR leaders are really looking for a company that has a purpose and a mission and a product that they can relate to. And I think they, more than ever, they really feel like if they're going to be successful in recruiting top talent, they have to believe in the product and the company. I think they want a leader who has integrity and values the function. So someone who actually is, back to the offense versus defense comment, someone that sees people strategy as a key differentiator for the company. And I think a lot of people are chasing the dream right now. The IPO pipeline, we're seeing movement like never before from the Fortune 100 CHROs who are going to take early stage opportunities and chase those valuations like the recent IPOs. And then we're seeing people that have been through the growth journey 2 and 3 times that are frankly just a little bit tired and looking for a little more stability and a more mature leadership team. And so we're seeing people go back and forth more than we have in the past.
So one of the things that always interests me is when you're in an IPO environment and maybe you are from a more mature organization and then you go and you work in the IPO environment, it seems like there's a large difference between those two types of jobs. What's the success rate that you see somebody going from a mature organization into, an IPO type of an organization? And then what are the skills somebody needs to have to be able to do that successfully?
Yeah, it's another great question, Jason. I think just to give a real life example, it's funny with people coming from large established companies, when they come into a hyper growth environment, and typically the hyper growth environments are about minimal viable product. It's like the company's moving so fast, you don't have time to build a fully baked solution, because by the time you get a minimal viable product, the company's outgrown the product and you just have to be good with that. So we see a lot of CHROs come in from large companies and they'll build a beautiful talent management strategy that's fully baked and tested and piloted, and they'll put it in front of the founder or the CEO. And the first question from the CEO is, when did you do this and why am I just seeing it now? Right? And then when you take a hyper growth CHRO and put them into a formal environment, the CEO's like, this is half baked and why am I seeing this now?
Yeah.
Like this is a minimal viable product. Go figure it out and bring it back to me when it's fully baked. So it just one example. I think the skills are different, right? When you go to an early stage company, it's about the first principle thinking. It's about designing the function. And oftentimes we'll have CEOs and founders that say, hey, go find me someone from the most successful companies in the world, Amazon, Google, you name it. And if someone wasn't there during the design phase, they've come in and they're operating, right? I mean, the playbooks are fairly established. And so one of the biggest requests we get right now for early stage companies is find me someone who's actually been through the growth curve, that's actually done the design work. And that's a challenge because there's not as many people who've gone through 1, 2, or 3 sort of growth curves in the tech industry that you can go after. But those individuals are in high demand.
Brad, what other skills are you thinking about and looking for as you're looking for talent in the marketplace?
Yeah, there's strong demand for people who have started their careers in consulting and have been very hands-on in doing that design work and problem solving and first principle thinkers. There's strong demand for people that are what I'd say business first HR leaders, where they truly understand how the business makes money, how it operates, and they can contribute to the broader conversation in the boardroom, not answer the HR questions, but help a CEO decide whether they should spend more money on marketing or, building out an internal sales force or an inside sales force. So I think that's in demand. The role that HR leaders are playing is broadening out. We're actually seeing a lot of companies add functions to the HR mandate. So HR leaders are often taking over real estate and facilities. They're taking over sustainability and philanthropy. They're in many cases taking on internal IT because it's such an important part of the employee experience. And so you're starting to get to a point where marketing was in 2006 when technology really changed the function of marketing. Technology is now changing HR. And I think, and I hope that CHROs are going to start to get elevated to CEO roles.
Yeah, I mean, that's happened a bit, but it definitely hasn't happened as much as you'd like to see. And I know I worked for a leader who had both real estate facilities and IT, and she owned all of those functions, and it was actually super beneficial to be able to, have her and span across those things. You could really get things taken care of very, very quickly. So, Brad, when you talk about supply and demand and looking at the pool of people, what are you doing to, find more people? And then how do people who want these jobs position themselves so that they can be a candidate that can be considered? Do you have any advice in those two areas?
Yeah, so I think there's really good news in the market for number twos. Right. I mean, there's absolutely an opportunity to step up into the number one seat, and there's a lot of really great ready now candidates. I think for those people who are in a number two spot, whether that's an HR business partner leading HR for a significant, division of a company or a functional area of a company, if you're thinking about being an HR VP, which is kind of a requirement before you step up to CHRO, pick the product and engineering area. We're seeing the most demand for people that have had experience working with top technical talent. But I think some of the experiences that someone would need to get, you need to find a way to get board exposure. And many of the CHROs who are developing their successors find a way to expose them to executive compensation, get them listening into listening into the board conversation, being a board advisor, preparing board decks. I think that's an experience that that can be sometimes hard to get, but it's important because a CEO, if they're about to put you into that top job and you're responsible for their compensation, they typically care about that.
Exactly.
I think another thing that's important is they want to see people who have gone from HR business partner to COE leader, center of excellence leader, whether that's talent acquisition, talent management, total rewards, because that's typically where you're designing new programs. And so they want to know that, yes, you can operate, you can be close to the business, be a trusted advisor, but they also want to know that you can design new programs and lead enterprise transformation.
Great. Now, you talked a little bit earlier, Brad, about diversity and inclusion and belonging becoming kind of front and center in a lot of organizations. What are you seeing from a requirements perspective for HR leaders around that?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think that HR has always been a place that was fairly diverse, especially in terms of gender diversity. And so it's not a new focus. I just think people have really doubled down and they're very much looking for ethnic diversity and gender diversity in that role. Yeah, I think those individuals are in high demand. And so it's really on the company to figure out, are they ready for a person of color to go into that role? And what I mean by that is we often ask the question, yes, you want a diverse candidate, but what have you done to prepare to have diversity within your organization? Are you just starting the journey, or how far along are you on that? And I think it's great news. I mean, we're seeing, again, 80% of our placements are diverse. And we're also seeing a lot of people from the DE&I world actually get the top job in HR, which is great.
That's awesome.
What led you to get into search, Brad? How did you end up in this really cool field?
Yeah, I'm so thankful for the experiences I had, because I think whether it was growing up in talent acquisition and hiring engineers back in the .com world in San Francisco, or going to Harrah's and Caesars in Vegas, which there's no better training ground in HR than dealing with the employee problems in a casino that runs 24/7.
Imagine.
Going through the growth curve with Salesforce, or starting a recruiting technology company. I mean, all of those, when I sit with CEOs and founders, I have a lot of empathy for them and for what HR officers have to deal with. So I think it's prepared me well for it. And I just love building teams. I love serving a diverse group of clients. And, there's nothing more rewarding than putting someone into their dream job, which has been really, really fun.
So what do you think? What do you think has you sort of being the HR whisperer? We had Robert Redford, the horse whisperer, and we had Caesar Milan was the dog whisperer. How did you become the HR whisperer? What do you think some of your secrets to your success have been?
I think I'm really curious. I love hearing people's stories, and I can interview 6 or 7 people in a day, and it doesn't feel repetitious to me. I love hearing about the innovations. I love bringing HR leaders together to hear how they're tackling some of these issues. I mean, when COVID first hit, we started organizing CHRO roundtables, and there was very little facilitation. We just brought 25 HR leaders together, put them on Zoom, and it was like an explosion. I mean, it was, so I think back to the loneliness comment. I mean, HR leaders don't have a lot of people to go to in the organization. And so I'm fortunate in that many of them call me and say, hey, what's this company doing? Or have you heard how people are tackling this problem? And I really enjoy, being in that role and connecting people. So that's, I think, curiosity more than anything else.
And you have great energy, and you're super great to talk to when you're engaged with Brad and one-on-one. You really get the feeling that you're the only person that he's interested in, and he's phenomenal at doing that. Ray, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Brad. I mean, one question that a lot of HR practitioners would have is, how do they get on, the Heidricks and Struggles, radar, because there's, they're always receiving, if you're a good HR professional, you're always receiving, headhunter calls, left and right. But it's really, how do they work with the right, individual that's focused on, kind of their career, in finding those dream jobs?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of Heidrick, which is, our firm's been around for over 60 years. And so it's very well regarded. We have relationships at the top, and we're large enough that each of the partners has a specialty. So if you're coming up and you're an engineering leader, there's someone who's going to get to know you on that side. So my focus is 100% on HR officers. And I can tell you right now, Ray, based on the supply and demand, I am making time every single week to connect with people I don't know, and get to know them. And I view it as a lifetime relationship. I mean, Jason and I have known each other for a long time, and it's, he's got a great background. And if I find someone with a great background, I'm going to be doing this for my career. So we should get to know each other. And I really want to understand your interest and your motivations and how you're seeing your career unfold, so that we can start to put the right opportunities in front of you. And so each week I'm meeting new people, and I may regret this, but for anyone on the call that, is interested in a career in HR, we'd love to connect.
Great.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes.
How will they connect with you, Brad?
Yeah. simple email. It's just bwarga, BWARGA at Heidrick.com. And that's probably the best way.
Okay.
Brad, anything else you want to tell us before we wrap up our time with you? Anything else that you want to share with us?
No, look, I think I'm feeling thankful this week. I'm thankful that our president is starting to like move us towards leading the way in vaccinations. I'm thankful to the jury yesterday for getting it right, and for all the people who made their voices heard. And I'm super thankful for the HR leaders that I get to help with their career. And the market is just incredible right now. So it's a good week.
Those are all good news stories. So we like good news stories. Ray, Beth, any last minute questions for Brad?
No, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time with us and for making your own history here on our first LinkedIn Live. So thank you.
We're going to have to give Brad a plaque or at least a coffee mug or something.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Hey,
Thank you very much.
anytime.
A pencil. You'll get a pencil and you'll like it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Brad, you're awesome. Thank you for everything. Good luck and happy recruiting. And we look forward to seeing all those great placements when you get them in your place. So thank you so much for everything you do.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Okay.
Take care.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye-bye.